I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Meg Heap. I'm the District Attorney for Chatham County. Joining me here today is Chief Roy Mentor. He is the Chief of the Savannah Police Department. I also have Mayor Van Johnson of the City of Savannah. We want to talk to you about a recent use of force case involving the Savannah Police Department. We each have a different piece to share with you today. Because it is an open case, ethically I can only discuss the process. I reviewed the video cam, the body cam video, and statements this past Friday. Although I'm not going to comment on the video except to say that it was sufficiently concerning that I decided to immediately schedule it for a grand jury. The date of the grand jury is the week of September 4th, 2020. Georgia law requires that if a police officer is accused of a crime during their official duties, 20 days notice of the grand jury must be given. If you look around this country, people are demanding justice. The best way I can ensure justice is to put this case before a grand jury as quickly as possible and to allow the criminal justice process to begin. Chief Mentor is going to discuss a piece with you, as is Mayor Johnson, who is present. Since taking office, the mayor created a use of force task force. The chairman of the task force is one of my prosecutors, Diane McLeod. She's the Chief Assistant District Attorney of Juvenile Court. At this time, I would allow or ask Chief Mentor to join. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Meg. Let me back up a little bit and kind of give you some context on what we're looking at in this particular situation. Back in April, our warrant squad responded to an apartment complex on Abercorn Street to attempt to locate a suspect who had an outstanding domestic violence warrant. During this investigation, 2 members of the squad reportedly violated several department policies, including our use of force policy. My office was contacted concerning this matter, and both members, a sergeant and a corporal, were immediately placed on administrative leave while an internal investigation was being conducted. At the conclusion of this investigation, I moved forward with termination for both employees. My decision was appealed to the city manager, who upheld my decision, and these employees were formally separated from the city of Savannah on July the 30th. I'm going to ask Mayor Johnson to come up and discuss some of his involvement in this and community involvement in this, and then I'll come back and talk to you a little bit more about my conversation with the District Attorney's Office. Mayor Johnson.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chief Mentor, District Attorney Heap. I also have with us the City Manager, Pat Monahan, and Alderman for the 4th District, Nick Palumbo, who has joined us. If you want to change culture, you have to do things differently. If you're going to do things differently, you have to do things intentionally. On July the 1st, 2020, I named the Savannah Citizens Accountability and Review of Emergency Services Task Force, known as Savannah Cares. This is approximately 20 individuals, one nominated by each member of the City Council, and then members from various parts of our community, including clergy, including law enforcement officers, to be able to do 4 things. First is to review the Savannah Police Department's use of force policies. Secondly, to engage the community about their experiences with the Savannah Police Department. The next thing was to be able to engage, to report to the community, and then to work with the police department to institute reform. And the unique thing about this moment in time is that this task force had already been meeting. They've already been working with the police department, reviewing our use of force policies. This presented a unique opportunity for us to change the paradigm, and I'd ask Chief Mentor to give the opportunity for this task force to be able to review the body cam video and to give recommendations based on as they saw it. This is essentially the citizens being involved in this process. So on last Friday, the CARES task force gathered in person, and they reviewed the body cam video, and they made a recommendation to the chief that the actions of the officers warranted a referral to the district attorney's office. Before I go back to Chief Mentor, I will say that we continue to support the men and women of the Savannah Police Department who we feel absolutely is the best police department in the world. These are hardworking, well-credentialed professionals that have given their life to public service. We will not stand or tolerate in this administration and going forward people who do bad things. And so therefore we want to make sure that's absolutely clear. We want to make sure that the public is a part of that process, and so the public had an opportunity through Savannah Cares to be a part of that process, and they made their recommendation to Chief Mentor. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. And as the Mayor said, a recommendation was forwarded to me on Friday by the CARES Committee for me to consider referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for review, which was done, and it has now been handed over to, or consulting with the District Attorney's Office on this case. Let me be real clear. There were three things that really stuck out to me in terms of this particular incident. First and foremost, based on my review of the internal investigation and the video, I believe that the conduct of two members of the Savannah Police Department during this particular incident was totally unacceptable and egregious behavior on their part. The second thing is, I do not believe that their behavior during this incident is in line with our core values of the department, which is to protect, serve, and to build trust in the community. The third thing is, I do not believe that their behavior is representative of what we expect of Savannah Police Department members or City of Savannah employees or people who are charged with serving and protecting this community. So that was really the basis of me making my decision as far as moving forward with terminating these employees. And then also, after looking at the conduct of these employees during this incident and receiving some feedback from members of our community, I made the decision to refer this matter to the DA's office for further review.
We open it up for any questions at this point.
Chief, are there any points the GBI part of this investigation, or did they consider to help with the investigation?
The GBI was considered to assist with this investigation, but when I consulted with the DA's office about a timeline that they were looking at, we felt it would probably be best for us to move forward with conducting a criminal investigation as opposed to the GBI. That probably would have taken an extensive period of time, so we're moving forward with conducting a criminal investigation.
Chief, is there any reason we're not naming these officers in this case?
No, we can name the officers. Yeah, we can name the officers, and we will also provide you with a news release and also separation paperwork with the officers' names on.
Chief, what exactly are the officers being charged? You said behavior that's not becoming a Savannah police, but can you kind of go into what that was?
Yes, yeah. Specifically, I'll go into the corporal is identified as Corporal Daniel Kang, K-A-N-G. Corporal Kang was sustained on 3 department policy violations: conduct unbecoming, treatment of others, reporting a police response to aggression, resistance, and force. Sergeant Octavio Arango was sustained on 7 department violations: supervisory responsibility, neglect of duty, conduct unbecoming, treatment of others, questions of citizens, body-worn camera policy, and non-deadly force.
Chief, my understanding is that this was your decision, your disciplinary committee that you have, some of your higher-ups that are involved, said that these gentlemen should be suspended, not fired. So this is the second time now that you have overridden their decision somewhere. First start with this case. Why this case did you put their opinions, and then what does this say to that committee and that you put in a position to try to make that discipline that you now correctly switched on their opinions twice?
Well, I'm going to talk specifically about this case. And while I appreciate the recommendation that was forwarded to me to the Disciplinary Review Board, based on my review of this matter, I believe that more stronger discipline needed to be involved in this matter, especially when I looked at the totally unacceptable and egregious behavior in this particular situation. So based upon that, I made the decision that I felt was the best decision for this particular investigation.
Can you make more specifics on what you felt was egregious on what they did?
Well, I think when and I don't want to get too much into their conduct because that will go into what the DA's office is specifically looking at, but I think once we're able to talk specifically about the specific elements or the specific behavior of these department members, I think there'll be a better understanding of why certain decisions were made.
Will they be facing criminal charges from your office? Are you arresting them or charging them with something with grand jury?
I think anything that has to do with criminal charges or criminal investigation would best be answered by the district attorney.
Will we be able to see that video? I know typically it's after a grand jury season. Will that be available to the public after that?
By law, any open records is not until a case is closed. So, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Forgot about that. By law, I can't. It is deemed an open file, and I cannot disperse any of the evidence in the case. We don't know if there will be a bond hearing and/or a preliminary hearing where it may or may not be shown, but I cannot, on an open case, ethically give anything out.
Realistically, what we're looking at as far as grand jury action here in this case, I don't think the emergency was just a second. Let's be first.
So the Supreme Court issued a judicial decree, and it's suspending all grand jury. However, there are circumstances where the grand jury can actually convene, where it is deemed that it determines it's necessary for the grand jury to consider an essential matter to the administration of justice. It determines that a delay would pose a substantial risk of harm to the public interest, and after a consultation with the chief judge and the sheriff. We have a special grand jury that has been sitting here. I believe this is a case that deems to be called. Once I confer and I have a message in with the chief judge and we agree, but I am hoping to present this case the week of September 14th for criminal consideration.
Mayor, you got to see the video along with your task force. Can you give me, without obviously too many details, but can you give me your impression of what you saw and what happened in there with those officers and those suspects?
I was horrified. As someone who served as a law enforcement officer and as a member of this community, I felt personally that it was absolutely inappropriate, and I felt as a human resources professional that the chief's actions were absolutely appropriate. And then having a community group of folks from all over our community to also review it and to feel that this rose to the level that an additional level of review was appropriate, I agree with the recommendation.
Chief, sir? Chief, if the review board, this task force, when it comes to you with this recommendation to bring it to the DA, do you have any?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
Sorry. Would you have taken this case to the DA for review if the task force had not brought this to you and asked you to take it up?
Yes, I would have. That was a recommendation that I was already considering prior to having discussions with the task force. So yes, I would have.
Any other previous issues with these two officers, Corporal Kang or Sergeant Rango?
I can tell you there is one previous incident in Sergeant Arango's personnel file. I do not believe there was any prior discipline in Corporal Kang's personnel file. I believe Sergeant Arango was right at 15 years, and Corporal Kang was right about 8 years.
Is there any concern that when you have the public get this deeply involved, not saying that the use of force task force isn't necessary, but to have them watch video even before a jury gets to it, a judge gets to it, a grand jury gets to it, is there any concern of some sort of tampering or some sort of issue with that when they see it first and that it can get out in the community before it comes that way?
First of all, I think it's important to note that this was a unique moment in time. Secondly, that the chief did not have to allow the task force to review it, and I thank the city manager and the chief for allowing this this process to happen. It was something that they're doing in real time. We had each member of the task force sign a confidentiality agreement that is fully enforceable, because we recognize that they would be seeing things that may not be generally available to the general public. So the confidentiality of that was important, and so they've all signed it, everybody who viewed it, and to date I have not heard of any breaks in that confidentiality agreement.
Is this going to be something that's more regular, that this task force may be deeper involved even before we get to this point for grand jury?
I think, I mean, again, I think we have to talk about it. I think that in this case, again, we're talking about incidents like this happening across the country. We just found this weekend about an incident in Waycross that occurred. I mean, we have to do differently. We have to do differently. We have to be able to back the blue. We have to be able to support police, but then we have to be able to condemn people who do wrong things and condemn those actions. And I mean, we have officers that do great things, but when they do bad things, we have to be just as quick to be able to condemn those things. And so this is, I hope that maybe we might be able to formalize that into some sort of process. The SOP of the police department already allows for some part of public review, and I'm hoping we can integrate something like this in the process. And again, I'm glad in this case that the chief's decision and the recommendation of the task force concurred. Fully, we recognize going into this that at the end it was the chief's decision one way or the other.
This is sending that message to the community, you think, to make sure that they understand what's going on and take this.
Yeah, it's a message to the community that I meant what I said on that hot day at the end of May, that it was going to be a new day in Savannah, that Black Lives Matter, everyone's lives matter. We're going to make sure that people are treated with dignity. They're going to be treated with respect. We're going to support our police department, but yet we are going to be committed that individuals who do bad things, who don't respect, serve, and protect, will no longer be members of our police department.
Chief, is there anything else you can tell us about the other party in this case?
Specifically, what are you looking for when you mean the other party?
The people involved in this, or person.
What I can tell you is the subject of this particular incident was mistakenly identified and was not the person that they were looking for as far as the person who actually had the warrant out for their arrest. I guess that's the best answer I can give you. Three things I want to make sure we discuss before we end this press conference is the first thing is I want to make sure people understand that the system worked. Sometimes we hear about people being concerned about police being able to hold their own accountable. We received this information. This information came to us by a review of protocols that are being put in place for use of force. The lieutenant reviewed the body-worn camera video and immediately started contacting the people that needed to be contacted, and Internal Affairs was contacted, and the personnel the former department personnel were immediately placed on administrative leave while this investigation was conducted. This investigation was conducted in a fair and just way and resulted in what I felt was the appropriate level of discipline for this matter. The second thing I want to make sure people are very clear about is the policies worked. We have policies and procedures in place not only as guidelines for members of our employees, but also to be able to hold them accountable. You're looking at two members, one who was sustained on 3 department policy violations, another one who was sustained on 7 department policy violations. We didn't have to search to find policies that governed their activities. We already have policies in place. And then the third really important thing is, we have a DA who is willing to make sure that she's doing a complete and thorough review of this matter and is not putting it on the shelf somewhere and is not shying away from this. So I think it's very important for people to understand the system worked, the policies worked, and the DA's office was not shy about stepping up and taking a look at this.
Chief, one more question. Was this an individual failure between those 2 officers, or was this a departmental failure on the side of training?
I believe it was an individual failure by these 2 individuals. The department policies were in place. The department policies were very clear. It was very clear to these individuals that they violated those department policies. So I believe this was an individual failure, not a department failure, and not a policy failure.
Really quick also,
I'll remember to take off the mask this time.
the offenses these 2 officers are facing, what are we looking at in terms of penalties that they would face should the grand jury indict? What kind of weight?
At this point, I can't answer that question. I know that I have reviewed the body cam, I have received statements. I know that I will receive more information from the police department and that we've assigned it. Greg McConnell, my chief assistant, and I will personally handle this case. When we receive everything, we will prepare and draft an indictment. At that point, depending on what the grand jury's decision is, it will be filed with the clerk and it would be open court. So you would be able to get access it then. I'm sorry? That question would have to be answered by either the city parties. I'm the county here.
That's the city attorney.
We don't know. We're sued every day about everything. So we'll address that when it comes to us, if it comes to us.
Was the person that they were responding to the wrong person? Were they arrested in this incident? Were they brought to jail?
No, they were not transported to the jail.
But were they arrested and charged?
They were placed in custody. They were not formally charged with the crime.
The person that was the subject of the warrant, were they eventually?
Yes.